The listing had been up for months. An old countryside house, priced far below market value. No neighbors within miles. No recorded history of renovations. Just a single blurry photograph taken at dusk. I was desperate to sell. Divorce had drained my savings. The mortgage was swallowing what little I had left. When the email arrived, it felt like salvation. I am interested in purchasing immediately. No inspection required. Cash payment, the message read. There was no name at the bottom, only a time and a date for a meeting at the property. It was strange, but strange was better than nothing. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. The wind outside sounded like fingers dragging across the windows. The house felt different somehow, as if it knew something I didn't. When I arrived the next evening, the sun was already sinking behind the trees. The shadows stretched unnaturally long across the yard. The front door was slightly open. I was certain I had locked it. I stepped inside. The air smelled damp and metallic. The silence felt thick, heavy, almost alive. "Hello," I called out. No response, but the floorboards creaked upstairs. Slow, deliberate steps. I told myself it was the buyer, that he must have arrived early. I climbed the staircase, each step groaning under my weight. The hallway at the top was dark despite the fading daylight. At the end of the corridor stood a tall figure facing the wall, completely still. "Sir," I said, forcing a polite tone. The figure did not move. Then slowly, too slowly, its head began to turn, but its body remained facing forward. And that was when I realized it had no face. I stumbled backward, nearly falling down the stairs. When I looked again, the hallway was empty. No figure, no sound, nothing but silence. My heart pounded violently in my chest. I searched every room upstairs, every closet, every corner. The house was completely empty. I convinced myself it was stress, lack of sleep, imagination, twisting shadows into nightmares. Then I noticed something on the hallway floor, a thick envelope. It hadn't been there before. My name was written on it in shaky ink. Inside was a contract, the property address typed neatly at the top, the purchase price far higher than I had ever dared to hope. But the buyer's name was blank. At the bottom, a single line read, "Sign, and the house will no longer be yours." The silence pressed against my ears. The temperature dropped sharply. I could see my breath forming faint clouds. From downstairs, a door slammed shut. I froze. Another door slammed. Then another. The house was sealing itself. The lights flickered. The floor beneath me vibrated, as if something massive moved below. Whispers echoed through the walls. Low, layered voices speaking words I could not understand. The contract in my hands felt warm, almost pulsing. A pen slid slowly across the hallway floor toward my feet. I did not see anyone push it. The whispers grew louder, insistent, hungry. "Sign," they breathed. And from the bottom of the staircase, I heard slow, heavy footsteps beginning to climb. The footsteps stopped halfway up the stairs. I could feel its presence watching me, waiting. The shadows on the walls twisted unnaturally, stretching toward the contract in my shaking hands. I should have run. I should have torn the paper apart. But something inside me hesitated. The debt, the fear of losing everything, the crushing weight of failure. Sign, the whispers urged again. The pen felt heavier than it should have, as if dipped in something thicker than ink. My hand moved before my mind agreed. The signature formed slowly across the line. The moment I finished, the whispers stopped. Silence flooded the house. The front door downstairs creaked open, and the footsteps retreated, descending, leaving. I stood frozen in the hallway for several long seconds. Then I gathered the courage to look over the staircase railing. At the bottom, the front door stood wide open. The yard beyond was empty. No buyer, no car, no sound, just the wind moving through the tall grass. Relief washed over me. It was over. The contract slipped from my hand and drifted to the floor. But as it turned midair, I saw something that froze my blood. The buyer's name was no longer blank. It now read, my own. I tried to laugh, to convince myself it was some cruel hallucination. But when I bent down to pick up the contract, my hand passed through it. Like smoke, panic surged through me. I looked at my hands. They were faint, translucent, the walls behind them visible through my skin. No, I whispered. My voice echoed strangely, as if the house itself were speaking through me. I ran toward the staircase, but my feet barely made sound against the wood. Each step felt distant, unreal. I reached the front door and stepped outside. The world felt wrong, muted. The trees swayed, but made no noise. The air carried no scent. Across the yard, I saw a car pulling up. A man stepped out, holding a phone. He looked nervous. He approached the house cautiously. I tried to shout at him, to warn him, but he walked straight past me, as if I did not exist. He stopped at the doorway, and I heard him mutter, "Strange. The listing says the previous owner vanished without a trace." He stepped inside, and the front door slowly began to close. I tried to follow, but something unseen held me back. As the door shut completely, the house felt whole again, waiting for its next buyer, and I understood at last. The house was never the thing being sold. It was always buying, and I was the payment, gone without a trace.